Let's find out more now from Newsmax White House correspondent Emerald Robinson, who tells us where things go next. Good afternoon, Emerald.
Hi, good afternoon, John. But a new case that was filed before by the state of Texas last night before midnight will go directly to the Supreme Court and will probably be the fastest track. It's led by the Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, and they're suing Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, all those states, on the grounds that they violated the Constitution.
Very interesting approach here from Texas, suing on behalf of the other states here. We'll see where it goes, and we'll get some insight on this from both Jenna Ellis and Professor Dershowitz. Emerald, thanks so much. We'll see you in the next hour as well. All right, let's welcome in now Harvard Law Professor Emeritus and Newsmax analyst Alan Dershowitz, also author of the book Guilt by Accusation. Great to see you again, Professor Dershowitz.
Thank you.
All right. So as probably one of the foremost legal scholars, constitutional experts in the country, what does this safe harbor deadline actually mean? And talk to us more about what Jenna was saying, the difference between statutory versus constitutional.
Well, the Constitution only provides one date, January 20th. That was in an amendment to the Constitution. Earlier on, it was March. These other deadlines are statutory, and obviously the Supreme Court would have the power to rule them unconstitutional if there were a significant challenge. The interesting thing that's going on now is this case of original jurisdiction in the Supreme Court. The Constitution permits a state to sue another state in the Supreme Court as a court of an original jurisdiction. That means it's like a trial court. It rarely happens, and it almost never succeeds. But it's a very creative approach. There is a lawyer and a law professor, a very distinguished lawyer named Nathan Lewin in Washington, who's made a study of this, and he actually wrote about how the appropriate approach to this election would be to have one state like Texas bring a lawsuit against other states saying the people of Texas have been deprived their rights by the miscounting of votes or whatever in other states. It's a stretch, and it's not something that's ever been tried before. It's creative, and Nathan Lewin is a great lawyer, and he advocates this, and so it probably will be taken seriously by the Supreme Court. Will it result in an undoing of the election? Almost certainly not. Will the Supreme Court take the case? Who knows? They've never had a like this presented before. This is all novel, cases of first impression, A+ for creativity, but whether or not it will work in the end is very doubtful.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because you hear this from other people all the time, that there's a very thin line between desperation and creativity here, and it's all who presents the argument, right? That's really going to be the one that's most important. And we're hearing that Senator Ted Cruz, a former student of yours there at Harvard Law School, has stepped up to hear this call and be the one to present the case. Here he was on Hannity's program over on Fox News last night.
Now, getting the Supreme Court to take a case is not easy. Typically, you get about 8,000 appeals to the Supreme Court in a given year. They take about 80 of them. They take about 1%. I think the court should consider it. I have called on the court to do it. I think it's the right thing to do. There will be justices who would prefer to stay out of this, who would prefer to protect their own credibility, essentially to protect their backsides. I think that's the wrong thing to do here.
So that's the thing, right? A lot of part of this conservative approach to being a jurist is to keep your hands off of this type of stuff.
Look, you couldn't get a better team of lawyers to argue this than Ted Cruz and Nathan Lewin. Nathan Lewin is an old Democrat. Ted Cruz, of course, the Republican senator from Texas, but Nathan Lewin is a man of deep principle in constitutional law. He's taught at Columbia and Harvard and other places. And he believes in this lawsuit, as does Ted Cruz. It would be fascinating to see the Supreme Court hear oral argument as a court of original jurisdiction, where they could hear witnesses. They could actually cross-examine and hear witnesses. It's rarely done, but it's in the Constitution. And so I don't blame the lawyers for trying creative challenges. That's their job.
I don't want to sound glib about this or flippant, but I share your kind of excitement about the constitutional process that could play out here. I would love to see. I think the American public would be served by actually seeing something like this, considering how contentious this election has been.
This would have another good positive effect. The Supreme Court could not refuse to allow that to be televised. Finally, we'd see a Supreme Court case. And it would be an education for all Americans. Would it have an impact on the election? I doubt it, but you never know. Once a case is in court, you never know how it's going to come out.
Great to see you, Professor Dershowitz. Thanks so much.